Hi, everybody. Welcome to Selling to the CIO podcast. I'm delighted to have one of my colleagues actually for the first time joining me. Kaitlin, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Awesome. It's great to have you. You're somebody I've known for a couple of years now. Really respect your work ethic and your acumen. So um, I chose you first to be on from ePlus to be on the podcast. So I'm excited for this.
I'm excited too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So why don't you walk us through your career a little bit? You've been a seasoned salesperson and actually transitioned into leadership recently. But I'd like to, talk us through your career a little bit and how you got started, and then we'll talk about some of your successes and how you do it.
Awesome. Yeah, so I've been in tech for almost 20 years. So I graduated from the University of New Hampshire, moved down to Boston, and got a job selling phone systems door to door. So believe it or not, I carried a phone in my briefcase, and I would walk down different main streets in rural Massachusetts and sell PBX phone systems. That
Love it.
transitioned into, yes, it was awesome. Not really. It was actually probably the most brutal job ever, knocking on doors. But you know what? I learned a lot. I absolutely developed an independence to knocking on doors, going in cold, which is really difficult to do. But it was a great experience. I did that for about 2.5 years. Went over to the Verizon world, right? So started in inside sales, worked myself up to business sales, took on a sales support role, so kind of all facets of the business. And ultimately, my 5 years there, I decided being an individual contributor was really where I had the most success, but more importantly, was where I was the most comfortable and confident. So again, transitioned one more time over to a company called Vanacore, and I, at the time, was selling collaboration suites, solutions for contact center, assessment, and we were a partner to the partner. So we built our business in this niche, small space up in New England, where big partners, Verizon's, AT&T's, Presidio's, were leveraging us to go in and do their contact center assessments and implementations. And then we got it bought by ePlus. So I was obviously through acquisition, came into ePlus 10 years ago, and started here and ended up where I am today.
Awesome. My first job similar was a door-to-door job. I probably was 13 or 14 selling, down in Florida selling newspaper subscriptions, and that was brutal. But it was like my first entree into sales, and yeah, I love the excitement of it, right? So, ever since then, I think I've been selling something in some form or fashion. So, like I always say, sales is the best job on earth, right? It's gives you the most freedom, and if you're successful, people leave you alone, which I like, and you can do what you want, most of the time. So,
Like
it's been a
I
nice
do
run.
we have a program, Girls Reimagining Tomorrow, and it's a Cisco program, ePlus, and what it caters to young females in the middle schools around the country. And I brought it to my daughter's school, and I sat down in front of a group of, all seventh grade girls talking about the program, trying to get them interested. And the principal says, "Now, Kaitlin, tell them what you really do." And I said, "Well, I take customers out to lunch, we go out to dinner, I entertain." And every single girl's face, their jaw dropped, and they said, "That's what I want to do." I go, "It's the best job on the planet." I said, "You run your own business." I go, "You can entertain, you build relationships." I go, "Hands down, it's the best job in the world." So a lot of them wanted to join the program after I think it was my, free lunches and free dinners, but get the girls interested in technology.
It's true. It really is a nice quality of life once you get entrenched and you start doing it. So I agree 100%. So listen, I've always respected you because you have great acumen. You do things the right way. I've seen you in front of customers. I have a lot of respect for you. So tell us, like, I know you switched into management recently. We'll talk about that. But as a sales rep, the audience for this podcast is a lot of sales folks. So what are your tips and tricks? What made you so successful these days? I know you can talk a little bit about COVID and what the last 15 months have held, but prior to that, what's been your secret to success all these years?
Yeah, I think, gosh, I mean, for me, I'm a people person, right? In work, at least. I thrive off relationships and energy and sharing a passion. And at the end of the day, some of my clients have become close friends. And I think at the end of the day, if you're not able to develop that type of rapport, not only on a business side, but that personal side, that's always been, in my opinion, where people are the most successful. If you are incapable of developing a relationship with your customers and talking about their kids and how their games are or what colleges they're going into, people buy from people. I mean, that's been the age-old adage that people like buying from people they like. So if you're not able to do that and really invest and spend time on learning who your customers are and being able to share stories and not just talk about business, because trust me, 90% of my conversations when I go out to lunch, maybe even 95, have nothing to do with business. It's all about the relationships I've built over 20 years. And I think that that's part of the reason why I love being in sales, but more importantly, I think that's part of the reason why I've been successful, is because of the relationship piece. I hate to say it, I don't want to mince or make it any more than it is. It's really about being able to translate to your customers and build relationships and be genuine and authentic and excitable and passionate. Those are I think, characteristics of a great salesperson.
Yeah, I would agree. Listen, I've been able to have some success in my career, and I'm not a technical guy at all, right? I've
Yep.
leaned on people around me to help me, and I think when the customer knows that, right, and you're upfront and you're humble about it and you're honest, they do appreciate that. They just want somebody who can get stuff done for them, right? And if you could be
Right.
that great quarterback to make sure you bring the right resources in when they're needed, and not try to bullshit your way through it. I think
Right.
customers appreciate that more than somebody who's trying to pull shit out of their backside, so to speak. So I agree with you. I've seen the relationships that you've built with some of your customers and how they respect you, and I would agree that's probably the main reason for a lot of your success over the years. So
You know what the
um,
other thing is too, as simple as it sounds, urgency, right? I'd be sitting in meetings, believe it or not, and I'd have customers be calling me and I'd text them, hey, I'm in a meeting, I'll get right back to you. To the point where I had a customer down in Boston, and I worked with them for probably 8 years. And there was one day, and I must have been in a doctor's appointment or something. I got a phone call, and an hour goes by, and I hadn't called him back. I started calling everybody around my office. Hey, is everything okay with Kaitlin? And everybody goes, listen, she's fine. And I had to call back, and I said, I'm sorry, I was in the doctor's appointment. He goes, it's your fault. He goes, you set the expectation that you would always respond within 2 minutes. So I was genuinely concerned that you weren't okay. But more importantly, they were used to receiving a response, right? That's all people want. As a buyer, I want a response right away, immediate gratification, immediate satisfaction. And I feel like if you can deliver that, there's value. So
uh,
that's another big piece too.
it's so true, and that's something you can do, right? You don't have to be necessarily a great salesperson, but
Right?
you can respond. And you're right. Just think about, you as a consumer, like especially these days when you're trying to get somebody to do construction or something in your house, or a plumber for that matter, an electrician. It's impossible, and these people don't call you back. So you're always calling the next person just to see who was going to
Exactly.
respond to this, right? So it's so true. Customers these days just want, I'd say, honesty, transparency, and somebody who cares and understands that, hey, if they're calling you, they just need a response back. Whether you not necessarily don't have the answer right away, but you let them know and you keep them updated along the way. That's the key, right? A
Correct.
lot of the just
Absolutely.
whether it's good news or bad news, don't be scared. You just got to share with them what's going on along the way, right? If their product's not going to ship on, you need to tell them that, if they understand you're looking out for their best interest and you're being honest with them. That's all these consumers are looking for these days. It's just like you in your regular life, right? That's what the people that
Yep.
we're dealing with want as well. So that's a really good point. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
So seen it like the last 15 months. I know you've transitioned. I don't know you recently became a leader of your team, which sometimes is good and bad, right? You have to deal with other people's crap.
Different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So you could be careful what you ask for when you make that transition, right? Sometimes it's easier just being a rep and doing your own thing and being left alone than having to deal with other people's stuff. But how's that been for you, that transition? And, more specifically, how's it been over the last 15 months in dealing with this COVID situation?
Yeah. So I I took this role, and my number one priority was saying I still want to be in front of customers. I love selling. I love being able to articulate all of the things that we're able to do from, a solutions perspective. So I don't want to be behind a computer. And then what happened? COVID. And then I sat in front of a computer for 15 months. So that's been a struggle because again, what I love the most is being able to go out and meet people. And that's internally too, right? So part of my role now is not just selling to the customer, it's selling internally. So that's a big part of this business that I think a lot of people kind of glaze over sometimes. Is it's just as important for me to be selling internally with our solutions and our service sets to the field, to engineers, to leadership. And part of that is being in front of them. So that has been a challenge, right? I'm excited to get back on the road. And I think that it's going to be really important to the business and how we grow. But to your point, yeah, it's definitely a transition going from being that individual contributor, building their own business, being successful, to now having a team of people that you're responsible for. Challenging and rewarding, yes, but it's definitely been a change.
Just have to understand, not everybody, and it was like me, right? When I made the transition, you expect everybody to be like you, right? And
Yes.
they're not, right? It's just different personalities, different skills, and you have to kind of take those things and try to lead them in the right direction, right? To become, not necessarily who you want them to become, but somebody that can be successful as long as you're coaching them along the way. It is challenging and it is difficult because sometimes you just want to strangle those folks. Like, no, you do it this way. This is how it's supposed to work. And you
Well,
make a
that's
good point.
it. It's control, right? It's like relinquishing control has been the most challenging part of this job for me. So when I stepped in, it was, to your point, it was like, no, this is what I did and this is why I was successful. But learning that people do things differently, understanding they have a different approach or methodology, that was a learning curve for me. I mean, I certainly, and I want to, listen, I don't want to be a manager, I want to be a leader. So I want to enable my team to be, be their own business, to essentially operate their own business, do it successfully, and rely on me for support and help and guidance. But I don't want to manage, CRM. I don't want to manage spreadsheets. I just want to be able to provide additional value to them so that they're successful in their respective territories. But yeah, giving up control was by far the most difficult thing I've ever had to do in my professional career.
Imagine when you're a type A personality and used to doing things
Yes.
your way, and you don't see it happening like that. With the sense of urgency that you have, right? It's
Right.
definitely frustrating to be in
Yes.
this role sometimes, right? Yeah, all good stuff. I tell people, you brought this point up before, right? Our job as leaders, right, is you have to spend that time, building the relationships internally. So when your reps do need something, you're able to knock down that wall for them, right? I always say part of being a great leader is, right, approving expense reports in a timely fashion, right? And
Exactly. Yes.
when your rep calls you, they really need you, and you got to be responsive to that. I
Right.
think that's part of our job as being a good leader. So, wow. So yeah, well, listen, we're already almost up against it. This has been great
We could
talking to
talk
you.
for hours.
What's that?
And we could talk for hours. I
Oh, I
mean,
know. This sales
different
stuff gets.
perspectives. It's interesting to hear how people go about doing what we do every day. I mean, everybody does it differently. So thanks for having
Everybody
me.
does.
I appreciate it.
There's definitely a lot of different formulas out there. So I'll leave. Is there any last piece of wisdom for any of the folks out there? As far as, I mean, you definitely left us some good tidbits, but I'll give you the floor here for the last 20 seconds.
No, I mean, listen, I think at the end of the day, be passionate, be excitable, challenge, be comfortable with difficult conversations, agree to disagree, and always be looking to be a change agent with whether you're an individual contributor or a leader. And, I'll leave with one more thing. A coworker of mine sent me this quote, and cheesy, but at the same time, it resonates, right? As a leader, right? When you talk to a manager, when I talk to a manager, I get the feeling they're important. When I talk to a leader, I get the feeling I'm important. So let people be heard, right? I think that's my number one thing. Making sure that your team is heard, that they feel valued, and that, you're giving back is probably the most, I think, important thing to do as someone involved in leadership. So
That's great
that.
advice. Send that to me. I'd like to have that as well. So
right? That was really
yeah,
good.
it's very true as well. So Kaitlin, it's been awesome. I thank you for jumping on here with me. Some of these tidbits and wisdom is invaluable. So have a great weekend. And as always,
yeah, you too.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thanks, David.